Chapter 1. The scent of blood hit Kieran Blackthorne's nostrils before he saw her. He froze mid-stride, his massive black wolf form going rigid as the metallic tang cut through the pine-heavy air of his territory. Blood. Female. And something else, something that made his wolf pace restlessly beneath his skin, clawing to get closer. The Alpha King had been patrolling the outer borders of Blood Moon Pack lands, as he did every night when sleep eluded him. Which was most nights. Leadership of the most feared pack in North America came with its own brand of insomnia. But this was different. Following the scent deeper into the forest, Kieran's paws moved silently over the moss-covered ground. 20 yards ahead, a pale form lay crumpled against the base of an ancient oak. At first glance, she looked dead. His shift was instantaneous and brutal, bones cracking and reforming as his wolf gave way to his human form. Kieran approached cautiously, every instinct screaming that something was wrong with this picture. Strangers didn't just appear in his territory. And they certainly didn't appear half-dead and nearly naked. The woman, girl, really, she couldn't be more than 22, lay on her side, dark hair matted with dried blood and forest debris. What remained of her clothes hung in shreds, and angry red welts covered her exposed skin. But it was her stillness that made his chest tighten. She wasn't just unconscious. She was barely breathing. Kieran crouched beside her, his hand hovering over her shoulder. The moment his skin made contact, electricity shot up his arm like he'd grabbed a live wire. The woman's eyes snapped open, pale green, like sea glass, and she recoiled with a strangled cry. "Easy," Kieran said, his voice rough from the shift. "I'm not going to hurt you." She tried to scramble backward, but her body betrayed her, trembling with exhaustion and pain. Those sea glass eyes darted around wildly, and Kieran caught the exact moment she realized she was trapped. "Please," she whispered, the word barely audible. I can't go back." Something primal and protective surged through Kieran's chest. His wolf was going crazy, pacing and snarling, demanding he eliminate whatever threat had reduced this female to such a state. But there was something else, something that made no sense. He felt like he knew her. "What's your name?" he asked gently, shrugging out of his jacket to cover her. She flinched when the leather touched her skin, then seemed to realize it was warm and pulled it closer. "Luna," she said after a long pause. "Luna Ashworth." The name meant nothing to him, but his wolf went silent. Completely, unnaturally silent. "I'm Kieran," he said, though he didn't mention his title. Alpha King tended to make people nervous, and this girl was already terrified enough. "Can you tell me what happened to you?" Luna's face went blank, and she shook her head. I can't remember. I was running, and then." She pressed her palms against her temples. "Everything's fuzzy." Kieran studied her face, looking for signs of deception. After 15 years as Alpha, he'd gotten good at reading people. But Luna Ashworth was either telling the truth or she was the best actress he'd ever encountered. What bothered him more was that he couldn't sense her wolf. Every werewolf had a distinct energy signature, a supernatural fingerprint that others of their kind could detect. It was how they recognized pack from rogue, friend from enemy. But this girl, there was nothing. She smelled human, felt human, yet something deep in his bones insisted otherwise. "We need to get you medical attention," Kieran said, making his decision. "Can you walk?" Luna tried to push herself upright and immediately collapsed back against the oak with a pained gasp. "I don't think so." Without hesitation, Kieran scooped her into his arms. She was lighter than she should be, all sharp angles and hollow spaces where curves should have been. When was the last time she'd eaten? "Where are you taking me?" Luna asked as he began walking back toward Pack lands. "Somewhere safe." That's what they said before. The words were so quiet he almost missed them. Kieran's jaw clenched. Someone had hurt this girl, badly. The protective rage building in his chest was getting harder to ignore, made worse by his wolf's increasingly agitated behavior. He'd never reacted this strongly to a stranger before. The pack house came into view as they crested a small hill, a sprawling log structure that looked more like a luxury resort than the headquarters of the most dangerous werewolf pack in the country. Warm lights spilled from the windows, and Kieran could hear the low murmur of late-night conversations from the common areas. Kieran. The voice came from his left, sharp with concern. Marcus Webb stepped out of the shadows, his beta's instincts having picked up on his alpha's distress the moment they'd crossed into pack territory. The broad-shouldered man took one look at the woman in Kieran's arms and his expression hardened. "What the hell is this?" Marcus demanded. "She was injured," Kieran said simply. "On our land." "Convenient." Marcus moved closer, and his nostrils flared as he scented the air around Luna. His eyes narrowed. "I can't sense her wolf." "I noticed. This has trap written all over it, Kieran. Unknown female, shows up half dead on our borders with no pack scent, no wolf signature." "Enough." The alpha command in Kieran's voice made Marcus step back, though his expression remained skeptical. Luna had gone rigid in Kieran's arms, her face pale as she looked between the two men. "I can go," she said quickly. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You're not going anywhere," Kieran said firmly. "Not in your condition." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but Kieran cut him off with a look. They'd been friends since childhood, had built this pack together from nothing, but right now Kieran needed his beta to trust him. Even if he couldn't explain why. "Get Dr. Chen," Kieran ordered. "Have her meet us in the East Wing guest room." "Kieran." "That's an order, Marcus." His beta's face went carefully blank. "Yes, Alpha." As Marcus disappeared back into the shadows, Kieran carried Luna through the pack house's back entrance. The East Wing was quieter, reserved for important guests and pack business that required discretion. Right now, he needed both. The guest room was simple but comfortable, king-sized bed, private bathroom, and most importantly, it was secure. Kieran set Luna down gently on the edge of the bed, noting how she immediately pulled his jacket tighter around herself. "Thank you," she said, not meeting his eyes. "For helping me." "Don't thank me yet," Kieran replied. "My beta thinks you're here to infiltrate our pack." Luna's head snapped up, those pale green eyes wide with alarm. "I'm not, I would never." "I know." The words came out before Kieran could stop them, surprising them both. He didn't know, not really. But every instinct he possessed was telling him that Luna Ashworth was exactly what she appeared to be, a broken girl who'd been through hell. A soft knock interrupted them. Dr. Sarah Chen entered carrying her medical bag, her kind face creased with concern as she took in Luna's condition. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured, immediately moving toward the bed. "What happened to you?" Luna's answer was the same. "I don't remember." As Dr. Chen began her examination, Kieran stepped back to give them space. But he didn't leave. He found himself studying Luna's face, searching for something he couldn't name. There was something familiar about the curve of her jaw, the set of her shoulders, even battered as she was. "She's severely malnourished," Dr. Chen said quietly, pulling Kieran aside 20 minutes later. "Multiple old injuries that didn't heal properly. And the newer wounds." Her expression darkened. "Someone did this to her deliberately. This isn't random violence." Kieran's hands clenched into fists. "How long?" "Based on the scarring?" "Months. Maybe longer." Dr. Chen glanced back at Luna, who had fallen asleep during the examination. "There's something else, Kieran. Something I've never seen before." "What?" "Her wolf." Dr. Chen shook her head slowly. "It's not gone. It's buried. Hidden so deep it's like it doesn't exist, but I can sense the faintest echo of it. It's like she forced it into hibernation." "Is that possible?" "I don't know. I've heard stories, old legends about werewolves who could suppress their wolves completely in times of extreme trauma. But I thought they were just stories." Kieran looked at Luna's sleeping form, noting how young and vulnerable she appeared. What kind of trauma could force someone to bury their wolf so completely? "There's one more thing," Dr. Chen said hesitantly. Her scent, underneath all the fear and pain, it's not quite right. What do you mean? It's too clean. Like someone tried to mask it. Dr. Chen packed up her medical bag. I've given her something for the pain and to help her sleep. She needs rest, food, and time to heal. But Kieran. I know. Keep this between us for now. After Dr. Chen left, Kieran found himself alone with Luna for the second time that night. She looked so small in the large bed, dark hair spread across the white pillowcase like spilled ink. Without thinking, he reached out to brush a strand away from her face. The moment his fingers touched her skin, images flashed through his mind. A grand house with silver-trimmed windows. A young girl with Luna's eyes, laughing as she chased butterflies through a meadow. The same girl, older now, standing beside a man with kind eyes and graying temples who wore the unmistakable bearing of an alpha. Kieran jerked his hand back, heart pounding. What the hell was that? Luna stirred in her sleep, murmuring something too quiet to make out. But in the soft light from the bedside lamp, Kieran caught sight of something that made his blood turn to ice. There, barely visible beneath her hairline, was the faint outline of a scar. Not just any scar, a deliberate mark in the shape of a crescent moon. Every werewolf knew that symbol. It was the mark of the Silver Crest Pack, one of the oldest and most respected packs in North America. The same pack that had been completely destroyed 5 years ago in a rogue attack that left no survivors. Kieran stared at the sleeping girl, in his guest bed, pieces of an impossible puzzle clicking into place. Luna Ashworth. Silver Crest Pack mark. The familiar feeling that had plagued him since the moment he'd found her. She wasn't just any rogue werewolf seeking shelter. She was Luna Silver, the daughter of Alpha Marcus Silver. The heir to the Silver Crest Pack. The girl who was supposed to be dead. As if sensing his realization, Luna's eyes opened. For a moment they simply stared at each other, and Kieran saw the exact instant she realized he knew. Please, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. Please don't make me go back. Kieran felt something fundamental shift inside his chest, like a lock clicking open after years of waiting for the right key. His wolf, silent since he'd first touched her, suddenly raised its head and let out a sound he'd never heard before. Recognition. Completion. Home. Never, he said, his voice rough with emotions he didn't understand. You're safe here, Luna. I promise you're safe. She closed her eyes, fresh tears leaking from the corners, and Kieran knew his life had just changed forever. The Alpha King of the Blood Moon Pack had just promised protection to the last heir of Silver Crest. And he'd meant every word. Chapter 2. Luna woke before dawn, her body clock attuned to the safest time for running. Gray light filtered through unfamiliar windows, and for a moment she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back, the forest, the Alpha King's touch, the way his eyes had changed when he'd seen her scar. He knew. Kieran Blackthorne knew exactly who she was. Panic clawed at her throat as she slipped from the bed, her legs shaky but functional. Dr. Chen's painkillers had done their job, dulling the worst of her injuries to manageable aches. She could travel. She had to travel. Kieran's jacket still lay across the chair where she'd left it. Luna picked it up, inhaling his scent without meaning to, cedar and storms and something wild that made her wolf stir restlessly in its deep prison. The reaction terrified her. She couldn't afford to feel anything for anyone, especially not the Alpha King of Blood Moon Pack. The guest room door opened silently under her touch. The hallway beyond was empty, morning light streaming through tall windows. Luna had gotten good at reading houses over the past year, mapping exits and escape routes within minutes of arrival. This place was bigger than most, but the principles were the same. East wing meant she was likely 2 floors up. Main staircase would be too visible, but there had to be servant stairs, a back way down. She'd nearly reached what looked like a promising corridor when a voice stopped her cold. Going somewhere? Luna spun around to find Kieran leaning against the wall behind her, arms crossed, looking like he'd been there for hours. He was dressed in dark jeans and a black t-shirt that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, and his dark hair was still damp from a shower. How had she not heard him? "I thought I'd get some air," she said carefully. "Aha." Kieran pushed off the wall and moved closer. "With my jacket and no shoes." Luna glanced down at her bare feet, cursing silently. "I was just running." His voice was flat. Again. Something in his tone made her defensive. "I don't owe you anything. You helped me, and I'm grateful, but that doesn't mean you own me." The words hit their mark. Kieran's jaw tightened, and she caught a flash of something dangerous in his dark eyes. "You're right. You don't owe me anything. But you're not leaving. You can't keep me here." "Can't I?" He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "You're on my land, under my protection. That makes you my responsibility. I never asked for your protection." "No, but you have it anyway." His voice dropped to a growl that raised every hair on her arms. "And I don't give it lightly." Luna's heart hammered against her ribs. This close, she could feel the power radiating from him, the barely leashed control of an alpha in his prime. But underneath that was something else, a desperation that matched her own. "Why?" she whispered. For a moment, Kieran looked like he might answer honestly. Then his expression shuddered. "You're a potential security threat. Until I'm satisfied you're not here to harm my pack, you'll remain as my guest." "Guest? Right. And if I refuse? Then you'll remain as my prisoner." The casual way he said it made her believe him completely. Luna had dealt with enough dangerous men to recognize when she was trapped, and right now escape wasn't an option. But that didn't mean she had to make it easy. "Fine," she said, lifting her chin. "But I want my own room. And I want to know how long this questioning is going to last." Kieran's mouth quirked upward. "You're not exactly in a position to make demands." "Maybe not. But I'm not going to cower either." Something flickered in his eyes, approval, maybe, or surprise. "The room you're in is yours for as long as you need it. As for the questioning..." He shrugged. "That depends on how cooperative you are." Before Luna could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed from the main staircase. Heavy boots, multiple people, all moving with military precision. Kieran's expression immediately shifted to something harder, more guarded. "Sir." Marcus Webb appeared at the end of the hallway, his face grim. "We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The Ravencrest delegation just arrived." Unannounced. Kieran cursed under his breath. "How many?" "Full escort. And Seraphina's with them." Luna didn't miss the way both men's expressions darkened at the name, or the tension that suddenly filled the air. Whoever Seraphina was, her arrival was bad news. "Take Luna back to her room," Kieran ordered. "I'm not a child," Luna protested. "And I can walk myself." It wasn't a suggestion. Kieran was already moving toward the main staircase. "Marcus, make sure she stays put. Use whatever force necessary." The casual command sent ice through Luna's veins. She watched Kieran disappear around the corner, then turned to find Marcus studying her with unconcealed suspicion. "Come on," he said. "Before this gets complicated." Luna wanted to argue, but the sound of car doors slamming in the distance convinced her to cooperate. She let Marcus escort her back to the guest room, noting how he positioned himself between her and every possible exit. "Who's Seraphina?" she asked as he opened her door. Marcus's expression went carefully blank. "Someone you don't want to meet." He left her alone with that ominous statement, and Luna heard the distinct click of a lock engaging. She was officially a prisoner now. Moving to the window, Luna peered down at the circular driveway where 3 black SUVs were parked. A group of stern-faced men in expensive suits flanked a tall woman with platinum blonde hair who was stalking toward the pack house's front entrance like she owned the place. Even from a distance, Luna could see she was beautiful in the way that wealthy werewolf daughters usually were. Perfect features, designer clothes, the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. She was also furious about something. Luna was still watching when the woman suddenly looked up, scanning the windows as if she could sense being observed. Their eyes met for just a moment, pale blue meeting sea green, and Luna felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Seraphina Ravencrest smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut glass. Luna stepped back from the window, her heart racing. Whoever this woman was, she was dangerous. And she clearly had some kind of claim on Kieran. The thought bothered Luna more than it should have. Exhaustion from her interrupted sleep finally caught up with her, and Luna settled back on the bed to wait. The voices from downstairs were too muffled to make out words, but the tone was getting increasingly heated. She dozed fitfully, her dreams filled with fragments of memory and impossible visions. She was running through the forest again, but this time she wasn't alone. Wolves surrounded her, dozens of them with red eyes and fangs dripping blood. Behind them rode a figure in black, his face hidden but his presence radiating malice. "The silver bloodline ends with you," a voice whispered. "But first, you'll watch your new pack burn." Luna jerked awake, her heart hammering. The sun was higher now, probably close to noon, and the pack house had gone eerily quiet. But the dream clung to her, more vivid and real than any nightmare should be. She'd been having them more frequently lately, dreams that felt less like dreams and more like warnings. Her grandmother used to talk about the gift of sight that ran in the silver bloodline, but Luna had always assumed it was just stories. Now she wasn't so sure. A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. Before she could respond, the door opened and Seraphina Ravencrest swept in like she owned the room. Up close, she was even more intimidating, tall and willowy with the kind of predatory grace that marked a high-ranking she-wolf. Her platinum hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her pale blue eyes missed nothing as they catalogued every detail of Luna's appearance. "So you're the little stray Kieran picked up," Seraphina said, her voice cultured and cold. "How quaint." Luna forced herself to meet the other woman's gaze steadily. "And you're his betrothed. How unfortunate." Seraphina's smile was razor-sharp. "Oh, I like you already. Most strays at least have the sense to show proper submission." She moved closer, circling Luna like a predator sizing up prey. "But then, you're not most strays, are you?" "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" Seraphina stopped directly in front of her. "There's something familiar about you. Something that's been nagging at me since I caught your scent downstairs." Luna's blood ran cold, but she kept her expression neutral. "I have one of those faces." Seraphina reached out as if to touch Luna's hair, then stopped just short. "Tell me, little stray, what pack did you say you were from?" "I didn't." "No, you didn't." Seraphina's eyes narrowed. "How convenient. Just like it's convenient that you showed up here, injured and helpless, just when Kieran was out on patrol. Just like it's convenient that he brought you into his private quarters instead of the pack infirmary." Every word hit like a physical blow, but Luna forced herself to remain calm. "If you have something to say, say it." "I'm saying," Seraphina stepped close enough that Luna could smell her expensive perfume, "that if you think you can use whatever sob story brought you here to worm your way into Kieran's bed, you're very much mistaken." Heat flashed through Luna's chest, anger and something else she didn't want to name. "I'm not interested in your fiancé." "Good. Because Kieran and I have been promised to each other since we were children. Our union will create the most powerful pack alliance in North America. I won't let some nameless little nobody ruin that." The threat was clear, but before Luna could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "Seraphina." Kieran's voice was deadly quiet as he appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing here?" Seraphina's entire demeanor shifted, the predator becoming the perfect society daughter in the blink of an eye. "Darling. I was just introducing myself to your guest." Kieran's dark eyes moved between them, reading the tension in the air with uncomfortable accuracy. "I asked you to wait downstairs. I wanted to see what was so important that you'd risk pack security." Seraphina moved to Kieran's side, her hand sliding possessively up his arm. She's not what I expected. And what did you expect? Someone more threatening. Luna caught the subtle insult and felt her temper flare. Before she could stop herself, she was speaking. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Next time I'll make sure to look more dangerous when I'm half dead in the forest. Kieran's mouth twitched, and Luna realized she'd just made things infinitely worse. Seraphina's perfect composure cracked, revealing something vicious underneath. How amusing, Seraphina said, her voice like poisoned honey. She has spirit. I wonder how long that will last. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kieran stepped away from Seraphina, positioning himself between the two women. That's enough, he said quietly. Of course, darling. Seraphina's smile never wavered, but her eyes promised retribution. I should let you get back to your questioning. We'll continue our conversation later, won't we, Luna? It wasn't really a question. Seraphina swept from the room with the same dramatic flair she'd entered with, leaving behind the lingering scent of expensive perfume and barely contained menace. The silence stretched between Luna and Kieran until she couldn't stand it anymore. She seems lovely, Luna said dryly. Kieran ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking tired. Seraphina can be intense. Is that what we're calling death threats now? She threatened you? The genuine surprise in his voice caught Luna off guard. Did he really not know what his fiancée was capable of? Nothing overt. Just made it clear I'm not welcome. Kieran's expression darkened. This is my pack house. I decide who's welcome. And you're betrothed? Does she get a say? Something flickered across Kieran's face, frustration, maybe, or regret. The arrangement between our packs is complicated. Arranged marriages usually are. Luna. It's fine. She turned away, not wanting him to see how much the confirmation hurt. It's none of my business anyway. I'm just the stray you picked up, remember? You're not, Kieran started, then stopped. The Ravencrest alliance is important to my pack's survival. I understand. Politics before personal preference. It's not that simple. Luna laughed, but there was no humor in it. It never is it? But here's the thing about complicated situations, they have a way of getting people killed. She faced him again, letting him see the weight of everything she'd endured in her eyes. Your fiancé knows there's something different about me. She's going to keep digging until she figures out what. And when she does, what? Luna closed her eyes, seeing flashes of her dream again, the wolves with red eyes, the figure in black, the whispered promise of destruction. When she opened them, Kieran was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. When she does, Luna said quietly, your war will have already begun. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. Kieran stared at Luna for a long moment, her words echoing in the sudden silence. There was something in her voice, a certainty that spoke of knowledge she shouldn't possess. What war? He asked quietly. Luna turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. I shouldn't have said that. But you did. Kieran moved closer, close enough to see the tension in her shoulders. Luna, if you know something. I don't know anything. The words came out sharp, defensive. I have bad dreams sometimes. Before Kieran could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway again, his expression grim. We need you downstairs. Now. What happened? Border Patrol found 3 bodies on the eastern perimeter. Rogues. Marcus's eyes flicked to Luna. They were carrying silver weapons. The bottom dropped out of Kieran's stomach. Silver weapons meant this wasn't random violence, it was targeted, professional. Someone wanted werewolves dead specifically. I'll be right there, Kieran said. After Marcus left, Kieran found himself alone with Luna again. She was pale, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped her arms. Luna. Go, she said without looking at him. Your pack needs you. Kieran hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him not to leave her alone, especially with Serafina in the house. But he had responsibilities, duties that couldn't be ignored. This isn't over, he said finally. Luna nodded, still not meeting his eyes. I know. The next morning, Kieran made a decision that sent shockwaves through the pack. You want to do what? Marcus demanded, pacing the length of Kieran's office like a caged wolf. Luna will serve as my personal aide, Kieran repeated calmly. Starting immediately. That's insane. She's a security risk, an unknown. She's under my protection. Kieran's voice carried the weight of alpha command. And I want her where I can keep an eye on her. Marcus stopped pacing, his expression shifting to something more knowing. That's what this is about? You want to keep an eye on her? Kieran's jaw tightened. He couldn't explain the pull he felt toward Luna, the way his wolf went crazy whenever she was out of sight. Hell, he didn't understand it himself. She knows something about the rogue attacks, he said instead. I need to find out what. And you think making her your personal aide is the way to do that? I think keeping potential threats close is smart strategy. Marcus studied his face for a long moment. Right. Strategy. He shook his head. The pack won't like this, Kieran. And Serafina. We'll deal with it. Kieran's tone brooked no argument. This is my decision, Marcus. Final. An hour later, Luna stood in Kieran's office looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She'd been given clothes from the pack house, dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that brought out her eyes, and someone had trimmed her hair. The brutal evidence of her ordeal was still there in the careful way she moved, the shadows under her eyes, but she looked more like herself. More like the girl he'd seen in those strange flashes of memory. You wanted to see me? Luna asked, her voice carefully neutral. I have a proposition for you. Her entire body went rigid. What kind of proposition? Kieran realized how that sounded and cursed himself. A job. I want you to serve as my personal aide. Luna blinked. I'm sorry, what? You said you didn't want to be a prisoner. This way, you're not. You're an employee. An employee who can't leave. An employee who chooses to stay. Kieran moved around his desk, noting how she tracked his movement like prey watching a predator. The position comes with a salary, lodging, and full pack protection. And in return, you help me with administrative duties. Scheduling, correspondence, research. Kieran paused. And you tell me the truth about what you know. Luna was quiet for so long he thought she might refuse. Then she lifted her chin with that stubborn pride he was beginning to recognize. Fine. But I have conditions. Such as? I want a real salary, not pack charity. I want my own room with a lock that I control. And I want it understood that this is a professional arrangement. Something in her tone made him step closer. Meaning? Meaning I'm not interested in being anyone's consolation prize. Luna's green eyes flashed. I know about pack politics, Kieran. I know what happens to unmated females who get too close to claimed alphas. The casual use of his name sent heat shooting through him. No one called him by his first name except family and Marcus. But hearing it from Luna's lips felt right. I'm not claimed, he said before he could stop himself. You're engaged. Same thing. Is it? The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to address. Luna looked away first. Do we have a deal or not? Kieran nodded slowly. We have a deal. The next few days fell into a strange rhythm. Luna proved surprisingly good at the job. She was organized, intelligent, and had an instinct for prioritizing that spoke of education and breeding. She also had an uncanny ability to anticipate his needs, often preparing documents before he asked for them or scheduling meetings he'd forgotten about. But it was the small moments that were driving him crazy. The way she bit her lower lip when concentrating. The soft sound she made when stretching after sitting too long. The fact that she smelled like vanilla and rain, and the scent seemed to cling to everything she touched. His wolf was in a constant state of agitation, pacing and demanding he claim what was clearly theirs. The rational part of his mind knew how insane that was. He'd known Luna for less than a week. But rationality seemed to have abandoned him where she was concerned. "You're staring again," Luna said without looking up from the report she was reading. They were in his office, late afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. Luna sat curled in the chair across from his desk, papers scattered around her as she worked through the monthly pack finances. "I wasn't staring," Kieran lied. Luna made a note in the margin. "The Ravencrest delegation is costing us a fortune, by the way. 3,000 just in food expenses. They eat a lot. They eat expensive." Luna looked up, and Kieran felt the familiar punch of attraction. Why are they still here? The alliance negotiations were supposed to conclude yesterday. Kieran had been wondering the same thing. Serafina's father claimed there were details to work out, but Kieran suspected the real reason was Serafina herself. She'd been watching Luna like a hawk, looking for any excuse to cause trouble. "Politics," he said simply. Luna nodded like she understood exactly what he meant. "Your fiancé doesn't like me very much. Serafina doesn't like anyone very much. But she especially doesn't like me." Luna set down her pen. "She's been asking questions about me around the pack." Kieran's attention sharpened. "What kind of questions?" "Where I came from. What pack I belonged to. Whether anyone recognizes me." Luna's voice was carefully controlled. "So far, the answers have been satisfactory. But she's persistent. She won't find anything. Won't she?" Luna stood and moved to the window, her back to him. "Everyone has a past, Kieran. Even people who are supposed to be dead." The casual statement hit him like a physical blow. Luna was admitting, finally, to being more than she claimed. But before he could respond, she was speaking again. "I should go. It's getting late, and you have that council meeting at 8. She was halfway to the door when Kieran's control finally snapped. "Luna, wait." She turned, and he was moving before conscious thought kicked in. 3 quick strides brought him close enough to see the gold flecks in her green eyes, close enough to smell that maddening vanilla scent. "Kieran," she whispered, but she didn't step back. "Tell me you don't feel this," he said roughly. "Tell me I'm imagining the way you react when I'm near. It doesn't matter what I feel. It's the only thing that matters." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Luna's eyes fluttered closed, and she leaned into the touch like she couldn't help herself. "This is crazy," she breathed. "I know. You're engaged. I know. I'm nobody. Nothing. I don't even have a wolf anymore." The pain in her voice broke something inside his chest. Kieran tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You're not nothing," he said fiercely. "You're..." The door burst open without warning. Serafina stood in the entrance, her pale eyes taking in the intimate scene with surgical precision. "Well," she said, her voice like silk over steel. "Isn't this interesting?" Luna jerked away from Kieran like she'd been burned, her face flaming with embarrassment and guilt. Kieran wanted to pull her back, to shield her from Serafina's predatory smile, but the damage was done. "Serafina," he said evenly. "You should knock." "Should I? How silly of me." Serafina moved into the room with feline grace. "I was looking for you, darling. The council meeting has been moved up." "Fine." Luna was just leaving. Luna nodded quickly, gathering her papers with hands that shook slightly. She headed for the door, but Serafina stepped into her path. "Luna, dear, you have something on your sweater." Before Luna could react, Serafina reached out and brushed at a spot near Luna's shoulder. It looked like a helpful gesture, but Kieran caught the subtle flex of Serafina's fingers, the way her nails extended just enough to catch fabric and skin. Luna gasped, a thin line of blood appearing where Seraphina's claws had accidentally caught her. The scent of blood hit the air, and something extraordinary happened. Power erupted from Luna like a shockwave, washing over the room with the force of a tidal wave. For just a moment, Kieran felt the presence of her wolf, not the broken, buried thing Dr. Chin had described, but something magnificent and wild and powerful. Something that felt like coming home. Luna stumbled backward, her eyes wide with shock and terror. "I have to go," she whispered, and fled. Seraphina watched her leave with satisfaction. "Clumsy of me," she said sweetly. "I do hope she's all right." Kieran stared at the doorway where Luna had disappeared, his wolf practically howling with the need to follow. That surge of power, the brief taste of her wolf, it had been incredible. And terrifying. Because he'd felt that energy before, years ago, in a different place and time. He'd felt it the night the Silver Crest Pack died. "Darling?" Seraphina's voice seemed to come from very far away. "The meeting?" Kieran looked at his fiancée, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. The calculated cruelty, the casual violence, the way she watched everything with the cold patience of a predator. "Right," he said slowly. "The meeting." But his mind was elsewhere, following a terrified girl who was running again, just like she had been the night her world burned down. And wondering what it meant that her wolf was finally waking up. Later that night, Luna sat on her bed with her knees drawn up to her chest, staring at the thin scratch on her shoulder. It had already healed, werewolf metabolism, but she could still feel the phantom pain of Seraphina's claws. More disturbing was what had happened after. The surge of power, the feeling of something stirring deep inside her chest where her wolf had been sleeping. For just a moment, she'd felt whole again. It terrified her. She'd spent 2 years learning to live without her wolf, building walls to keep the animal buried so deep it couldn't be hurt again. But being near Kieran was bringing it back, slowly but surely. And if her wolf returned, if she shifted again, everyone would know exactly who she was. Luna closed her eyes and tried to push away the memories that always came with thoughts of shifting. The night her parents died. The rogues with their silver weapons and cruel laughter. The leader who'd looked at her with dead eyes and promised she'd be the last to go. She'd been so young then, so sure her father would save them all. Alpha Marcus Silver had been strong and wise and beloved by his pack. But strength hadn't been enough against betrayal from within. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Luna tensed, expecting Seraphina or one of her followers, but the scent that drifted under the door was different. Cedar and storms and something wild. "Luna?" Kieran's voice was quiet. "Can I come in?" Every rational part of her wanted to say no. But rationality had been in short supply since the moment she'd met him. "It's your house," she said instead. The door opened slowly, and Kieran stepped inside. He'd changed from his formal clothes into jeans and a dark sweater, and his hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Fine. Luna." He moved closer, and she felt that familiar pull, the gravitational force that seemed to exist between them. "What happened earlier, in my office, was a mistake. Was it?" She looked up at him, this man who could have anything and anyone he wanted, and felt her heart break a little. "You know it was." Kieran sat on the edge of her bed, close enough to touch but carefully maintaining distance. "Tell me about your wolf." "What wolf?" The lie came automatically. "The one I felt earlier. The one that's been calling to mind since the moment I found you." Luna's breath caught. She'd hoped he hadn't noticed, hadn't felt the connection that had been driving her crazy for days. "I lost my wolf," she said quietly. "A long time ago. Wolves don't just disappear, Luna. They can be buried, suppressed, traumatized into silence. But they don't disappear. Mine did." Kieran reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek with infinite gentleness. "What happened to you?" he asked softly. Luna closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten. Things that can't be undone. Try me. For a moment, she almost told him everything. About the Silver Crest Pack, about watching her family die, about 2 years of running and hiding and trying to forget what she'd lost. But then reality crashed back. "You're engaged," she whispered. "I know. To a woman who would kill me if she thought I was a threat. I won't let that happen. You can't be everywhere, Kieran. And I can't keep pretending this isn't happening between us." His thumb traced her lower lip, and Luna felt her carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. "Then don't pretend," he said roughly. The space between them evaporated. Luna wasn't sure who moved first, but suddenly Kieran's mouth was on hers, hot and demanding and perfect. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his sweater as 2 years of loneliness and fear dissolved under the onslaught of sensation. Deep in her chest, something stirred. Something wild and fierce and hers. Her wolf was waking up. And it recognized its mate. Chapter 4. The blood moon hung heavy and crimson in the night sky, casting everything in shades of copper and shadow. Luna stood at her bedroom window, watching pack members gather in the courtyard below for the monthly ceremony. She'd been dreading this night for days. Blood moons were sacred to werewolves, a time when the veil between worlds grew thin and ancient magic stirred. For most packs, it was a celebration of unity and strength. But for Luna, blood moons brought nightmares. A knock at her door interrupted her dark thoughts. "Luna?" Kieran's voice was soft through the wood. The ceremony starting. She'd been avoiding him for 3 days, ever since their kiss had awakened something inside her that she wasn't ready to face. But tradition demanded all pack members attend the blood moon ritual, even temporary ones. "I'll be down in a minute," she called back. "Luna." Kieran's voice was closer now, right against the door. "We need to talk." "Not tonight." A pause. "Then, I know you're scared. But running away won't change what's happening between us." Luna closed her eyes, fighting the urge to open the door and fall into his arms. Some things can't be changed. They can only be survived. Another pause, longer this time. "The ceremony's mandatory," Kieran said finally. "I'm sorry." She heard his footsteps retreating and allowed herself a moment of weakness, pressing her forehead against the cool wood of the door. Everything would be different after tonight. She could feel it in her bones, in the restless stirring of her wolf, in the way the blood moon seemed to call to something deep and primal within her. 20 minutes later, Luna made her way to the ceremonial clearing behind the pack house. Torches ringed the space, their flames dancing in the night breeze. The entire blood moon pack had gathered, nearly 200 werewolves arranged in concentric circles around a raised stone platform. Kieran stood at the center, magnificent in his formal ceremonial robes. The deep blue fabric was embroidered with silver wolves and moons, marking him as Alpha King. The torchlight caught the sharp angles of his face, making him look like some ancient god of war. Luna found a spot at the back of the crowd, hoping to remain unnoticed. But Kieran's eyes found hers across the space, and she felt that familiar electric connection snap into place. His gaze held hers for a long moment before duty forced him to look away. "Brothers and sisters," Kieran's voice carried easily across the clearing, backed by alpha power. "We gather beneath the blood moon to honor our ancestors and renew our bonds to the pack." The ceremony began with the traditional chants, ancient words in the old language that spoke of loyalty and strength and blood ties that transcended death. Luna found herself swaying slightly, caught up in the hypnotic rhythm despite her reservations. Then Kieran raised his hands, and the real magic began. Power rolled off him in waves, touching every member of the pack and binding them together in a web of shared energy. Luna felt it wash over her, seeking to draw her into the collective consciousness of Blood Moon Pack. For a moment, she almost let it happen. The loneliness of the past 2 years pressed against her chest, and the idea of belonging somewhere again was almost irresistible. But then the blood moon pulsed overhead, and pain exploded through her skull. Images flashed behind her eyes, not the pleasant shared memories of the pack bond, but something far darker. fire and screaming. The sound of claws on stone. Her mother's voice, desperate and terrified, "Luna, run." She tried to push the memories away, but the blood moon's power was too strong. The walls she'd built around her past crumbled like sand, and everything came flooding back with violent, crystal clarity. She was 17 again, standing in the ruins of her family's home. Bodies everywhere, her pack, her friends, her family. All dead. All slaughtered by rogues with silver weapons and dead eyes. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the figure standing in the shadows, watching the carnage with cold satisfaction. Tall and broad-shouldered with prematurely gray hair and the unmistakable bearing of an alpha. Kieran's father. The former alpha king of Blood Moon Pack. "Well done," he said to the rogue leader, his voice carrying clearly in Luna's memory. "The Silver Crest Pack is no more. Their bloodline ends tonight." "What about the girl?" The rogue gestured toward where Luna hid in the ruins of her childhood home, too young and traumatized to understand what she was witnessing. "Find her. Kill her. The silver line must be completely extinguished." Luna gasped, stumbling backward as the memory hit her like a physical blow. Around her, the ceremony continued, but she couldn't hear it over the roaring in her ears. Her wolf, dormant for so long, suddenly exploded to life with a fury that made her bones ache. Betrayal. The word echoed through her mind like a death knell. Kieran's father had ordered her family's murder. Had sent rogues to slaughter innocents. Had tried to wipe out her entire bloodline. And Kieran. "No," she whispered, backing toward the tree line. "No, no, no." But even as she denied it, more memories surfaced. Kieran at his father's side during pack meetings. Kieran nodding as his father gave orders. Kieran, barely 21 but already showing the ruthless efficiency that would make him legendary. Had he known? Had he been part of it? Luna's partial shift hit her without warning. Claws erupted from her fingertips, and her canine teeth elongated as her wolf fought to break free. She could smell blood in the air, her own, from where her claws had cut into her palms. "Luna?" Marcus Webb materialized beside her, his expression concerned. "What's wrong?" She couldn't speak, couldn't think past the rage and betrayal burning through her veins. Her wolf wanted blood. Wanted revenge. Wanted to tear Kieran Blackthorne apart with her bare hands. "Get Kieran," Marcus called to someone. "Now." But Luna was already moving, pushing through the crowd toward the ceremonial platform. Pack members scattered out of her way, sensing the dangerous energy rolling off her in waves. Somewhere in the distance, she heard Seraphina's delighted laughter. "Luna!" Kieran leaped down from the platform, but she was beyond hearing. "You knew," she snarled, her voice distorted by her partial shift. "You knew what he did." Kieran stopped short, confusion flickering across his face. "What are you talking about?" "Silver Crest Pack. 5 years ago. Your father ordered their execution." The color drained from Kieran's face. Around them, the ceremony had ground to a halt as pack members watched the confrontation with growing alarm. "Luna. Did you know?" Her voice cracked like a whip, carrying enough pain to make several nearby wolves whimper. "Did you know your father ordered my family's murder?" The silence that followed was deafening. Kieran stared at her, pieces clicking into place behind his dark eyes. Luna Silver. Not Luna Ashworth. Silver Crest Pack. The dreams, the familiar feeling, the way his wolf had recognized her. "Oh God," he whispered. "You're Luna Silver. Daughter of Alpha Marcus Silver. Last heir of Silver Crest Pack." Her claws gleamed in the torchlight. "The girl your father tried to have killed." "I didn't know." Kieran's voice was raw. "Luna, I swear to you, I didn't know." "Liar. I've spent 5 years hunting the rogues who destroyed Silver Crest. 5 years trying to bring them to justice." Kieran stepped closer, ignoring the dangerous energy crackling around her. "I thought they acted alone." I never knew. Your father was there. Luna's voice broke. I saw him. I heard him give the order to kill me. Kieran's face went ashen. No. He wouldn't. He did. Tears streamed down Luna's face, but her rage burned brighter than her grief. And you expect me to believe you knew nothing? His heir? His perfect son? I wasn't perfect. Kieran's own control was fraying, his wolf responding to her distress with agitation. I questioned him constantly. We fought about his methods, his alliances. But I never thought. You never thought he was capable of genocide? The word hit like a slap. Several pack members gasped, and Luna saw Marcus moving closer, his hand on his weapon. But she was beyond caring about consequences. Luna, please. Kieran held out his hands, his eyes desperate. Let me explain. Let me. There's nothing to explain. Luna backed toward the tree line, her wolf screaming at her to run. You're his son. His legacy. His blood. I'm not him. Aren't you? Luna's laugh was bitter. You're the Alpha King. You rule through fear and strength, just like he did. You make alliances through force, just like he did. Tell me, Kieran, how many other packs have you destroyed in the name of Blood Moon's superiority? None. The word was a growl. I've never. Yet. The single word hung between them like a blade. Luna saw the exact moment Kieran understood what she was really saying, that she believed him capable of the same atrocities as his father. That she saw him as a monster wearing the face of the man she'd been falling for. Pain flashed across his features, so raw and genuine that Luna almost stepped toward him. Almost. But then her wolf caught a familiar scent on the wind, and everything changed. Rogues. Dozens of them, moving through the forest toward the clearing. Kieran. Marcus's voice was sharp with warning. We have company. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Rogues poured out of the forest, their eyes reflecting red in the torchlight. But these weren't the disorganized rabble that usually threatened pack borders. These moved with military precision, armed with silver weapons and coordinated tactics. Chaos erupted. Pack members shifted and scattered, some running for the pack house while others stood to fight. Luna found herself caught in the middle, her partial shift making her a target for rogues who recognized her enhanced scent. A massive gray wolf lunged at her, jaws snapping. Luna's training kicked in, muscle memory from a childhood spent learning to fight. She spun away from the attack, her claws raking across the rogue's flank. More came. Too many. Luna fought desperately, but her wolf was still weak from years of suppression, and she couldn't maintain her partial shift much longer. Luna. Kieran's roar cut through the battle. He was in full wolf form now, a massive black beast with silver eyes that tore through rogues like they were made of paper. But he was too far away, fighting his own battles. A silver blade flashed toward Luna's throat. She threw herself backward, feeling the metal whisper past her skin. The rogue who'd attacked her smiled, revealing teeth filed to points. Luna Silver, he said conversationally. Finally. Before she could respond, a smaller wolf with platinum fur and ice blue eyes appeared at the rogue's side. Serafina, but wrong somehow. Her scent was different, layered with deception and something darker. Well done, Serafina told the rogue. The Alpha King is distracted. Now's our chance. Luna stared in shock. You're working with them. Serafina's laugh was like broken glass. Working with them? Darling, I'm leading them. Her form began to shift, but not into her human shape. Instead, she grew larger, her fur darkening to charcoal, her eyes bleeding from blue to red. Not a werewolf. Something else. Something older and infinitely more dangerous. Shocked. Serafina's voice was a snarl now. You really thought I'd marry that self-righteous fool for love? Blood Moon Pack has been a thorn in our side for too long. Time for new management. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. The perfectly timed attacks. The way Serafina always seemed to know things she shouldn't. The questions about Luna's identity. "You've been feeding them information," Luna breathed. 4 months. Every patrol route, every weakness, every secret. Serafina's red eyes glittered with malice. Including the fact that the last silver heir was hiding right under Kieran's nose. Around them, the battle raged. Blood Moon Pack was holding their own, but barely. The rogues were too organized, too well informed. They knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. "Why tell me this?" Luna asked, backing away slowly. "Because you're not going to live to repeat it." Serafina lunged, her massive form covering the distance between them in a heartbeat. Luna rolled aside, but not fast enough. Serafina's claws raked across her shoulder, tearing through cloth and skin alike. Luna cried out, her partial shift finally failing as pain overwhelmed her system. "Too easy," Serafina purred, circling her fallen prey. "I expected more from the great silver bloodline." "You want to see the silver bloodline?" Luna pushed herself to her knees, blood streaming down her arm. "Let me show you what we're really capable of." Power erupted from Luna like a nuclear explosion. Not the tentative stirring she'd felt before, but the full force of her awakened wolf finally breaking free. The clearing lit up with silver light, and every werewolf within a mile radius felt the distinctive energy signature of pure silver blood. Serafina stumbled backward, her red eyes wide with shock. "Impossible. You're broken. Powerless." "I was sleeping," Luna corrected, rising to her feet as power continued to pour off her in waves. "Now I'm awake." Her shift was instantaneous and beautiful, a silver wolf with Luna's sea-green eyes and a presence that made the air itself seem to sing. She was smaller than Serafina's monstrous form, but she radiated an authority that came from ancient bloodlines and royal heritage. The two wolves circled each other, snarling. Around them, the battle had paused as both sides felt the shift in power. Luna could see Kieran fighting his way toward them, but he was still too far away. "You killed my family," Luna said, her voice carrying clearly despite her wolf form. "You destroyed my pack. You stole my life." "Your father was weak," Serafina spat. "He refused to acknowledge the new order. Refused to submit to stronger blood. He refused to become a monster." "Same thing." They clashed in a fury of fangs and claws, silver fur and charcoal meeting in a whirlwind of violence. Serafina was larger and more vicious, but Luna had speed and intelligence on her side. More importantly, she had something Serafina didn't. She had nothing left to lose. Luna's jaws found Serafina's throat just as Kieran reached them. The massive black wolf skidded to a halt, his silver eyes wide as he watched his supposed mate and his true mate locked in mortal combat. "Luna, no." His mental voice reached her through the pack bond she hadn't realized they'd formed. "Don't become what she is." For a moment, Luna hesitated. Serafina's blood was hot and metallic on her tongue, and it would be so easy to end this. To take revenge for her family, her pack, her stolen life. But Kieran was right. Killing Serafina wouldn't bring back the dead. It would only create more monsters. Luna released her grip, stepping back as Serafina collapsed, wounded but alive. Around them, the rogues were retreating, their leader defeated and their plan in ruins. But Luna's victory felt hollow. The truth about Kieran's father hung between them like a chasm, and she could see in his eyes that he understood nothing would ever be the same. "Luna," he said, shifting back to human form. "Please. Let me explain." She looked at him, this man she'd been falling for, this alpha king who represented everything she'd lost, and felt her heart break all over again. "There's nothing to explain," she said quietly. "I know what I have to do now." "Don't." Kieran stepped toward her, his voice desperate. "Don't run. Not again." "I'm not running." Luna met his eyes one last time, memorizing his face. "I'm going home." She shifted back to wolf form and disappeared into the forest, leaving behind the only pack that had felt like home since her own was destroyed. Behind her, she heard Kieran's anguished howl echoing through the night. The blood moon hung overhead like a crimson eye, watching as the last heir of Silver Crest Pack ran toward an uncertain future, carrying the weight of truth and the burden of a love that could never be. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 5. Kieran stood in the aftermath of the battle, surrounded by wounded pack members and the acrid smell of rogue blood, but all he could think about was the empty space where Luna had vanished into the forest. His wolf paced frantically inside his chest, howling for its mate. Mate. The word hit him like a physical blow. Not the political alliance he'd been raised to accept with Serafina, but a true mate bond, the kind that happened maybe once in a generation, if at all. Sir. Marcus appeared at his side, a field bandage wrapped around his forearm. The rogues are retreating, but we have casualties. Dr. Chen needs. Find her. Kieran's voice was rough with emotion and exhaustion. I don't care how many trackers it takes. Find Luna. Marcus studied his alpha's face with growing concern. Kieran, she made her choice. She left. She's in danger. Kieran could feel it in his bones, a wrongness that made his skin crawl. Something's hunting her. Something that wants her specifically. How can you know that? Before Kieran could answer, pain lanced through his skull, not his own pain, but something foreign and terrifying. Luna's pain. For a split second, he felt what she felt, rough hands grabbing her, silver chains burning her skin, the claustrophobic press of a van closing around her. Then nothing. She's been taken, Kieran said, his voice deadly quiet. Mobilize every tracker we have. Now. 3 hours earlier, Luna had run deeper into the wilderness than she'd ever gone before. Her wolf reveled in the freedom, in the sensation of finally being whole again after 2 years of forced dormancy. But even as she ran, she couldn't escape the look in Kieran's eyes when she'd left. Pain. Devastation. Love. She'd seen love there, real and desperate and completely forbidden. Because no matter what he claimed about not knowing his father's plans, the truth remained. Kieran Blackthorne was the son of the man who'd ordered her family's execution. Loving him would be a betrayal of everything she'd lost. Luna paused beside a stream to drink, her reflection showing sea-green eyes in a silver coat that gleamed under the fading moonlight. Her grandmother's stories echoed in her memory, tales of silver wolves with the gift of sight, of visions that came true, of a bloodline blessed and cursed in equal measure. A twig snapped behind her. Luna spun, but the tranquilizer dart hit her before she could run. Silver-laced, designed specifically for werewolves. She had just enough time to see a figure step out of the shadows, tall, scarred, with dead eyes she remembered from her worst nightmares. Hello, little silver wolf, Damien Score said softly. We have so much to discuss. Darkness claimed her. Luna woke to the sound of water dripping and the smell of rust and despair. She was in a basement somewhere, chained to a concrete wall with silver shackles that burned against her skin. The metal was old but well-maintained, designed to hold werewolves indefinitely. Awake at last. The voice came from the shadows across the room. I was beginning to worry I'd used too much sedative. Damien Score stepped into the dim light cast by a single bare bulb. He looked exactly as she remembered, tall and lean with prematurely white hair and scars that spoke of countless battles. But it was his eyes that made her blood run cold. They held no warmth, no humanity. Just the calculating patience of a predator. You, Luna whispered. Me. Damien smiled, and it was like looking at a skull. Surprised? You shouldn't be. I've been hunting you for 2 years, little prophet. Did you really think you could hide forever? I'm not hiding anymore. No, you're not. Damien moved closer, staying just out of reach. Tell me, Luna, do you remember what you saw the night your family died? The vision that started all of this? Luna's blood turned to ice. She'd never told anyone about the vision, not even her parents. It had come to her just hours before the attack, vivid and terrifying and absolutely certain. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. Damien's voice was conversational, but Luna caught the menace underneath. You saw it, didn't you? The child. The destroyer. The one who would bring down everything we've built. The memory hit her like a physical blow. She had seen it, a child with silver hair and eyes like storm clouds, standing in a field of burning pack houses. A child with the power to command all werewolves, to unite them or destroy them at will. A child that would be born of silver blood. You killed my family for a vision? Luna's voice cracked with rage and disbelief. I killed your family to prevent a prophecy. Damien pulled a chair over and sat down, settling in like he had all the time in the world. But then I realized my mistake. The vision didn't show just any silver child. It showed your child, specifically. That's impossible. I can't. Can't what? Have children? Oh, but you can, Luna. In fact, you must. Damien's smile widened. The bloodline magic that gives you the sight also ensures you'll conceive when the time is right. And that time is very, very soon. Luna pulled against her chains, ignoring the way the silver burned her wrists. You're insane. Am I? Let me tell you what else I know. Damien leaned forward, his dead eyes fixed on her face. Your visions are getting stronger, aren't they? More frequent. More vivid. That's because your power is awakening fully, preparing for what's to come. He was right, and Luna hated him for it. The dreams had been constant lately, showing her glimpses of possible futures, some wonderful, some terrifying. And there's something else, Damien continued. Someone else. A mate whose very presence accelerates the process. Kieran. Luna felt her heart clench at the thought of him. Kieran Blackthorne, Damien said, reading her expression. How deliciously ironic. The son of the man who tried to prevent the prophecy, becoming the key to fulfilling it. Kieran has nothing to do with this. Doesn't he? Tell me, Luna, when did your wolf start returning? When did your powers begin to strengthen? Damien's smile was triumphant. It was when you met him, wasn't it? When the mate bond began to form. Luna said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. The prophecy requires a child born of silver blood and alpha power, Damien explained. Your blood. His power. The perfect combination to create something unprecedented. Even if that were true, it doesn't matter. I'll never. Never what? Have children with Kieran Blackthorne? Damien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Oh, my dear child, you misunderstand. You won't be breeding with the Alpha King. The words hit Luna like ice water. What? Did you really think I'd allow the offspring to be raised by Blood Moon Pack? To be influenced by their so-called nobility? Damien stood, moving to a table covered with surgical instruments. No, Luna. You'll breed with me. Under controlled conditions. And the child will be raised to serve my purposes. Horror crashed over Luna in waves. You're talking about rape. About creating a child to be a weapon. I'm talking about reshaping the werewolf world. Damien selected a silver scalpel, testing its edge. For too long, the packs had been fractured, weakened by their petty squabbles and outdated honor codes. But a leader who could command absolute obedience. Who could unite all werewolves under one banner. That would change everything. You want to create a dictator. I want to create a god. The casual way he said it made Luna's skin crawl. This wasn't just about power or revenge. Damien's score was completely, utterly insane. The procedure will begin tomorrow, Damien continued, setting down the scalpel. I've spent years perfecting the process. Hormone treatments to ensure conception, binding spells to prevent miscarriage, careful monitoring throughout the pregnancy. I'll kill myself first. No, you won't. Damien's confidence was absolute. Because if you die, I'll turn my attention to the Blood Moon Pack. Starting with your precious Alpha King. The threat hit its mark. Even furious and betrayed as she was, Luna couldn't bear the thought of Kieran dying because of her. Besides, Damien added, almost as an afterthought, suicide is remarkably difficult when you're pregnant. The maternal instincts become quite overwhelming. Luna felt sick. This monster had thought of everything, planned for every contingency. She was trapped, just like she'd been trapped as a 17-year-old watching her family die. But she wasn't 17 anymore. And she wasn't defenseless. You made one mistake, Luna said quietly. Did I? You assume Kieran won't come for me. Damien laughed. The noble Alpha King, charging to the rescue? Even if he could find you, which he can't, why would he risk his pack for a woman who rejected him? Because, Luna stopped herself just in time. She'd been about to say, because he loves me, but something held her back. Some instinct that told her Damien didn't understand the mate bond the way she was beginning to. Because what? Damien prompted. Because he's honorable, Luna said instead. Something you'd never understand. Honor. Damien spat the word like a curse. Honor is what got your parents killed. Honor is what keeps the packs weak and divided. Honor is a luxury I can't afford. He moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. Rest well, Luna. Tomorrow begins the first day of the new world. Alone in the darkness, Luna tested her bonds. Silver chains, expertly welded. Silver collar around her throat that would prevent her from shifting. She was well and truly trapped. But as she settled back against the cold concrete wall, something strange happened. A warmth spread through her chest, alien but familiar. Power that wasn't quite her own, flowing through connections she was only beginning to understand. Kieran. Somehow, impossibly, she could feel him. Not his physical presence, but his emotions, desperate worry, burning determination, and underneath it all, a love so fierce it took her breath away. The mate bond. It had finally snapped into place completely, bridging the distance between them. Luna closed her eyes and sent her own feelings back along that invisible thread. She was alive. She was strong. And she would not give up. 20 miles away, Kieran jerked upright from where he'd been studying maps with his tracking team. Marcus looked up in alarm as his alpha's eyes went wide with sudden understanding. You felt her, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. The mate bond. Kieran's voice was filled with wonder and terror. She's my true mate, Marcus. Not a political alliance or a convenient partnership. My actual, destined mate. Where is she? Kieran closed his eyes, following the thread of connection that hummed between them. Luna's emotions washed over him, fear, anger, determination, and underneath it all, a love that matched his own. But there was something else. Something that made his wolf snarl with protective rage. Iron Fang territory, Kieran said, his voice dropping to a growl. Damien's score has her. Marcus went pale. Everyone in the werewolf world knew about Damien's score, the rogue leader who disappeared 5 years ago after a series of particularly brutal pack raids. He was smart, vicious, and completely without mercy. We'll need an army, Marcus said. Then we'll raise one. Kieran stood, power radiating from him in waves. Send word to every pack that's ever owed Blood Moon a favor. Call in every alliance, every debt, every promise. Kieran, that could start a war. Then we'll fight a war. Kieran's eyes blazed with silver fire. Because I'll burn the entire werewolf world to ash before I let Damien's score keep my mate. Deep in Iron Fang territory, Luna felt Kieran's resolve through their bond and smiled in the darkness. Damien's score thought he understood power, thought he could control destiny through fear and manipulation. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The Alpha King was coming for his mate, and nothing in heaven or hell would stop him. Chapter 6. The Iron Fang stronghold was a fortress carved into the mountainside, all jagged stone and defensive positions that had withstood sieges for over a century. Kieran crouched in the tree line with Marcus and 12 of his best warriors, studying the seemingly impregnable walls through night vision scopes. 3 guard towers, overlapping fields of fire, Marcus murmured. Motion sensors along the perimeter. And that's just what we can see. There. Kieran pointed to a narrow ravine that cut along the eastern face of the mountain. Water drainage. It has to connect to the interior somehow. That's a suicide run, even for you. Kieran felt Luna's presence through their bond, weaker now, muffled by distance and whatever Damien was doing to her, but still there. Her fear had spiked twice in the past hour, and the second time had been accompanied by such rage that Kieran's wolf had nearly taken control. I'm not leaving her in there another minute, Kieran said flatly. Marcus grabbed his arm. This feels wrong. Too easy. Damien's score doesn't leave obvious vulnerabilities. Then we'll spring whatever trap he's set and deal with it. Kieran shrugged out of his beta's grip. Luna doesn't have time for careful planning. What he didn't say, what he couldn't say, was that their mate bond was telling him things that made his blood run cold. Luna was in more danger than just captivity. Something was happening to her, something that was slowly draining her life force. Sir. One of the scouts materialized from the shadows. We found something. Bodies in the outer perimeter. Fresh kills. Kieran and Marcus exchanged glances. Show us. The bodies were iron fang wolves, their throats torn out with surgical precision. But what made Kieran's skin crawl was how they'd been arranged, in a pattern that looked almost ritualistic. This wasn't random violence, Marcus said quietly. Someone's sending a message. Or clearing a path. Kieran studied the scene with growing unease. The kills were too convenient, too perfectly placed to aid their infiltration. We should abort. You just said. I know what I said. Kieran's jaw tightened. But this is obviously a trap. The question is whether we can spring it and survive long enough to get Luna out. Before Marcus could respond, a new scent hit the air. Familiar. Expensive perfume and predatory grace. Hello, darling. Serafina stepped out of the shadows like she owned them, flanked by a dozen wolves Kieran didn't recognize. Right on time. Kieran's warriors moved to defensive positions, but they were already surrounded. More wolves emerged from concealment, too many to fight, all armed with silver weapons. Serafina. Kieran kept his voice level despite the rage building in his chest. I should have known. Should you? How flattering. She smiled that razor-sharp smile he'd come to hate. Though I suppose after our little confrontation at the Blood Moon ceremony, you might have suspected I wasn't quite finished with you. Where is Luna? Safe. For now. Serafina gestured, and her wolves closed in. But whether she stays that way depends entirely on how cooperative you're feeling. Marcus shifted slightly, preparing to attack, but Kieran shook his head minutely. They were outnumbered 3-1, and more importantly, Luna's life hung in the balance. What do you want? Kieran asked. Such a simple question with such a complicated answer. Serafina circled him slowly. I want Blood Moon Pack. I want the Alpha King's power. I want to reshape the werewolf world in my image. But most of all, I want to watch you suffer the way you made me suffer. I never hurt you. Didn't you? Serafina's voice turned vicious. Do you have any idea what it's like to be promised to someone who looks at you like you're a political inconvenience? To know that no matter what you do, you'll never be more than a breeding mare for pack alliances? I never wanted the arrangement either. No, you wanted your precious little silver wolf. Even before you knew who she was, you wanted her. Serafina's eyes blazed with fury. Do you think I'm blind? I saw how you looked at her from the moment you brought her into our territory. The admission hit Kieran like a physical blow. You knew. You knew who Luna was. I suspected. The resemblance to her mother was quite striking, once you knew what to look for. Serafina's smile was poisonous. And when I confirmed my suspicions, I realized I had a choice. I could expose her and watch you reject her for political reasons, or I could find a more permanent solution. You allied with Damien's score. I allied with someone who wanted the same thing I did, Luna Silver dead and buried. Serafina moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. But Damien had a better idea. Why kill her when we could use her? Why waste such a valuable resource? Understanding crashed over Kieran like ice water. You're going to force her to breed. Not me, personally. I find the whole process rather distasteful. Serafina wrinkled her nose delicately. But Damien has such creative ideas about bloodline manipulation. And once Luna has served her purpose, well, accidents do happen. Rage exploded through Kieran's system, his wolf demanding blood. But before he could move, silver nets dropped from the trees above, weighted and impossible to break quickly. His warriors were trapped, helpless. Tsk tisk, Serafina tutade. Such a temper. No wonder your father despaired of teaching you proper control. My father had nothing to do with this. Oh, but he did. Serafina's eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction. Who do you think gave him the idea that Silver Crest Pack was planning to overthrow the established order? Who whispered in his ear about ancient prophecies and bloodline threats? The world tilted sideways. You. Me. Serafina's admission was casual, devastating. It was so easy, really. Your father was already paranoid about threats to Blood Moon supremacy. All I had to do was feed that paranoia, point him in the right direction. You manipulated him into ordering the massacre. I guided him toward a necessary conclusion. Serafina shrugged like they were discussing the weather. The silver bloodline was always going to be a problem. Their gift of sight, their royal heritage, their inconvenient moral principles. Better to eliminate the threat before it could mature. Kieran felt sick. His father, the man he'd spent years trying to understand and forgive, had been a puppet dancing to Serafina's strings. Of course, I didn't anticipate Luna surviving, Serafina continued. Or that she'd end up right back where she started, playing hero to your ridiculous rescue attempt. Where is she? Kieran's voice was barely human. Close. Very close. Serafina gestured to her wolves, who began dragging the captured Blood Moon warriors toward the fortress. You'll see her soon enough. Just in time to watch her die. The interior of the Iron Fang stronghold was even more oppressive than Luna had imagined. Damien had led her through corridors carved from living rock, past cells that reeked of despair and laboratories that looked like medieval torture chambers. Impressive, isn't it? Damien said conversationally as they walked. 5 generations of Iron Fang Alphas built this place. Each one adding their own special touches. Luna said nothing, conserving her strength for whatever was coming. The silver collar around her throat made shifting impossible, but it couldn't completely suppress her growing power. She could feel it building inside her chest like pressure behind a dam. Your boyfriend should be arriving soon, Damien added. Serafina's little trap was quite elegant. Kieran's not my boyfriend. No? What would you call him then? Damien paused at a heavy steel door. The man you're destined to breed with? The father of the destroyer you'll create? Or just the fool who's about to die trying to save you? The door opened onto a circular chamber carved into the heart of the mountain. Ancient symbols covered the walls, runes and sigils that made Luna's skin crawl. At the center of the room stood an altar made from black stone, stained with substances she didn't want to identify. Welcome to the breeding chamber, Damien said with obvious pride. Every Iron Fang Alpha for the past 2 centuries was conceived here. And now, so will the destroyer. I told you, I'll never. Never what? Submit? Damien laughed. Oh, my dear child, submission was never part of the plan. He gestured, and Luna saw the magical circles carved into the floor, the binding symbols etched into the stone. This wasn't just a room, it was a trap designed to hold supernatural power and bend it to the wielder's will. Forced conception spells, Damien explained helpfully. Quite illegal in most territories, but remarkably effective. Combined with the bloodline binding rituals, they'll ensure the child carries exactly the traits we need. Horror washed over Luna in waves. You're talking about magical rape. I'm talking about destiny. Damien's eyes burned with fanatic fervor. The old ways are dying, Luna. The pack system, the honor codes, the petty squabbles over territory and status. It's time for something new. Something unified. Something pure. Something evil. Something necessary. The sound of footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. Luna's heart leaped as she felt Kieran's presence through their bond, closer now, but muffled by pain and silver chains. Serafina entered first, her platinum hair gleaming in the torchlight. Behind her came a group of iron fang wolves dragging bound prisoners. Luna's heart stopped when she saw Kieran among them, silver chains wrapped around his wrists and throat, blood streaming from cuts on his face and arms. Delivery as promised, Serafina said brightly. One Alpha King, slightly used but still functional. Kieran's eyes found Luna's across the chamber, and the mate bond flared between them with desperate intensity. Even beaten and chained, his first concern was for her. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice rough from the silver collar. Not yet, Luna replied, trying to project strength she didn't feel. How touching, Damien observed. True love conquering all obstacles. It's almost enough to make one believe in fairy tales. He nodded to his wolves, who forced Kieran to his knees at the edge of the ritual circle. The silver chains glowed with malevolent energy, designed to drain werewolf strength and prevent shifting. You're just in time for the ceremony, Damien told Kieran conversationally. I thought you might want to witness the conception of your mate's first child. Our child. Kieran lunged forward with a roar of rage, but the chains held him fast. The silver burned his skin wherever it touched, sending wisps of smoke curling into the air. Careful, Serafina warned. Too much excitement and you might not live to see the grand finale. Why? Kieran's question was directed at Serafina, his eyes blazing with betrayal. Why do this? We could have found another way to dissolve the engagement. You didn't have to. Didn't have to what? Orchestrate your father's paranoia? Manipulate him into committing genocide? Ally with madmen and murderers? Serafina's perfect composure cracked, revealing the twisted hatred underneath. You still don't understand, do you? This was never about the engagement. She moved closer, crouching down so they were eye to eye. This is about the fact that you looked at me for 15 years and never saw me, she hissed. About the fact that one broken little nobody walked into your territory and in less than a week, you were willing to tear down everything for her. Serafina. About the fact that you're my destined mate, and you don't even know it. The words hit the chamber like a bomb. Luna felt the truth of them through her enhanced senses, the twisted bond that connected Serafina to Kieran, corrupted by years of rejection and bitterness until it had become something poisonous. That's impossible, Kieran breathed. Is it? Why do you think our parents arranged the engagement in the first place? They felt the potential bond, saw what we could become together. Serafina's voice broke slightly. But you rejected it. Rejected me. Chose to pine after impossible dreams instead of accepting what the fates had given you. The bond between us isn't real, Kieran said firmly. What I feel for Luna is an abomination. Serafina stood, her composure restored. A mockery of what we could have had. But it won't matter much longer. She gestured to Damien, who began activating the ritual circles. Power filled the air, ancient and dark and hungry. The breeding ceremony will take several hours, Damien explained helpfully. Plenty of time for you to contemplate your failures as an alpha. And when it's over, when Luna is carrying the destroyer, I'll kill you both and claim Blood Moon Pack as my own. You're insane if you think my pack will follow you. They'll follow me or they'll die. It's really quite simple. Damien moved toward Luna, his hands glowing with dark magic. Now then, shall we begin? That's when Luna felt it, the dam inside her chest finally cracking. Power poured out of her in waves, not the controlled strength she'd been learning to use, but something raw and primal and completely beyond her experience. The world exploded into silver light. When her vision cleared, Luna was no longer chained to the altar. She stood in the center of the ritual circle, power crackling around her like living lightning. But this wasn't just enhanced wolf strength or prophetic sight. This was something new. Something that let her reach into the minds around her and touch the very essence of their thoughts. She could feel Damien's memories, centuries of violence and manipulation, the slow corruption of a wolf who'd once been noble. She could sense Seraphina's twisted love, the way years of rejection had curdled into murderous obsession. She could touch the minds of every Iron Fang wolf in the chamber and know their fears, their loyalties, their breaking points. And she could change them. Impossible, Damien whispered, staggering backward. That power level shouldn't exist. Shouldn't it? Luna's voice echoed strangely, layered with harmonics that spoke directly to the wolf brain. You wanted the destroyer, Damien. You just never asked what it would destroy first. She reached out with her newfound ability and touched the mind of the Iron Fang wolf closest to Kieran. The man's memories flooded through her, a lifetime of loyalty to Damien built on fear and conditioning. Luna found the core of that fear and twisted it, turning it back on its source. The wolf turned on Damien with a snarl, his eyes blazing with sudden understanding of what his alpha really was. Stop her! Damien screamed, but Luna was already reaching out to the next mind, and the next. One by one, Damien's wolves turned against him as Luna showed them the truth, the innocent lives he'd taken, the packs he'd destroyed, the madness that drove his every decision. They saw through her eyes what they'd become, and they chose differently. But the power was killing her. Luna could feel it burning through her veins like acid, consuming her life force to fuel abilities no mortal mind was meant to contain. Blood ran from her nose, and her vision blurred at the edges. Luna, stop! Kieran's voice cut through the chaos. You're dying. She looked at him, this man she loved beyond reason or sanity, and smiled sadly. I know. The chamber erupted into violence as Iron Fang wolves turned on each other, as Damien's empire crumbled from within. But Luna only had eyes for Kieran, and for the choice that lay before her. She could save him. Save his pack. End the threat Damien represented forever. All it would cost was everything she had left. I love you, she whispered across the mate bond. And then she let the power consume her completely. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 7. The chamber erupted into chaos as Luna's power tore through the minds of Damien's wolves, turning them against their alpha with vicious efficiency. But even as her newfound abilities raged like wildfire, Luna could feel her life force bleeding away with each use of the devastating mental manipulation. Luna. Kieran fought against his silver chains, the metal searing his flesh as he struggled to reach her. You have to stop. The power is killing you. Through their mate bond, he could feel her pain, not just physical, but the agony of touching minds corrupted by centuries of violence and hatred. Each wolf she freed from Damien's influence cost her more than she could afford to give. I can't stop, Luna gasped, blood streaming from her nose as she turned another Iron Fang wolf against his alpha. If I stop now, we're all dead. Damien stood in the center of the chaos, his dead eyes blazing with fury as his carefully built empire crumbled around him. You little bitch, he snarled. You think you can destroy everything I've worked for? He raised his hands, dark magic coiling around his fingers like living shadows. The power he'd stolen from countless victims over the centuries gathered into a spear of pure malevolence, aimed directly at Luna's heart. Stop. Seraphina's voice cut through the battle like a blade. She's mine to kill. The platinum-haired she-wolf stood at the edge of the ritual circle, her own power building to dangerous levels. But this wasn't the calculated cruelty Luna had come to expect. This was raw, desperate fury. You took everything from me, Seraphina screamed at Luna. My mate, my future, my place in the world. I won't let you destroy it all and walk away." She began chanting in the old tongue, words that made the very air shiver with malevolent intent. The ritual circles carved into the chamber floor began to glow with sickly green light, responding to her call. "A soul binding," Damien breathed, his attack momentarily forgotten. "You magnificent creature. Even if the boy dies, his soul will be yours forever." Horror crashed over Luna as she recognized the ancient magic Seraphina was weaving. Soul binding was forbidden among werewolves for good reason. It could trap a person's essence even beyond death, turning them into a puppet for eternity. "Kieran, you have to get out of here," Luna said desperately, trying to reach him through the chaos of fighting wolves. "I'm not leaving you. You don't understand. If she completes that ritual, then we stop her together." The chains around Kieran's wrists began to crack as his wolf fought against the silver bonds with inhuman strength. The mate bond between them flared brighter, and Luna felt something extraordinary happening. Her failing power was being supplemented by his strength, while her abilities seemed to be enhancing his natural werewolf gifts. "Impossible," Damien whispered, watching their bond manifest as visible light between them. "Two wolves cannot share power to that degree. The biology doesn't allow." His words were cut off as the main entrance to the chamber exploded inward. Marcus Webb burst through the opening in full wolf form, his massive brown coat streaked with enemy blood. Behind him came the entire Blood Moon pack, 200 werewolves in perfect formation, moving like a supernatural army. "About time," Kieran muttered, the silver chains finally snapping under the combined pressure of his enhanced strength and Luna's power flowing through their bond. The battle that followed was unlike anything Luna had ever witnessed. Blood Moon wolves poured into the chamber like a tide of fangs and fury, engaging the remaining Iron Fang forces in brutal close combat. The ancient stone walls echoed with snarls and howls as werewolf fought werewolf in the confined space. But Luna's attention was fixed on Seraphina, whose soul-binding ritual was nearing completion. The green light around the platinum-haired she-wolf was growing brighter, and Luna could feel dark tendrils of magic reaching toward Kieran's essence. "I have to stop her," Luna told Kieran as he freed himself from the last of his bonds. "We stop her," he corrected firmly. Together, they moved toward Seraphina's position. But Damien stepped into their path, his scarred face twisted with rage. "You're not going anywhere," he snarled. "I've spent too many years planning this to let it end here." Power erupted from the rogue alpha, not just werewolf strength, but something darker. Something stolen. Luna realized with horror that Damien had been feeding on the life force of his victims for decades, hoarding their power like a supernatural parasite. The blast of stolen energy sent both Luna and Kieran flying. Luna hit the stone wall hard enough to crack ribs, while Kieran rolled to absorb the impact. But when they climbed to their feet, something had changed. Their mate bond, stressed beyond its limits by the magical attacks, had evolved. Luna could feel Kieran's wolf as clearly as her own, while he had access to her prophetic sight and mental abilities. They were no longer two separate beings fighting together, they were something new, something unprecedented. "Together," Kieran said, and Luna nodded. They attacked Damien as one entity, their movements perfectly synchronized. Luna's mental abilities showed her his next move before he made it, while Kieran's enhanced speed and strength let them act on that knowledge. When Damien raised a barrier of stolen power, Luna shattered it with her mind while Kieran struck at the rogue alpha's physical form. But they were fighting on two fronts. Even as they battled Damien, Seraphina's ritual was reaching its crescendo. The soul-binding spell sent invisible chains toward Kieran's essence, seeking to tear his very soul from his body. "Choose," Seraphina called out over the chaos, her voice carried on waves of dark magic. "Save yourself, little silver wolf, or watch your mate's soul become mine forever." Luna felt the spell's tendrils wrapping around Kieran's spirit like iron bands. The soul binding was too strong, too complete. There was only one way to break it, by pouring all of her remaining power into severing the connection. All of her power. Everything she had left. It would kill her. "Luna, no," Kieran said, reading her intention through their bond. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Luna touched his face gently, memorizing the feeling of his skin against her palm. I love you. That's all that matters. She began to gather her power, preparing to sacrifice everything to save him. But as the energy built in her chest, something extraordinary happened. Her wolf, dormant and broken for so long, finally stirred to full wakefulness. And it was magnificent. Silver light exploded from Luna's skin as her wolf emerged, not the damaged, traumatized creature that had hidden from the world, but something pure and powerful and touched by divine grace. When she shifted, her form was unlike any werewolf Kieran had ever seen. She was white. Not silver or light gray, but true white, the color of fresh snow and moonlight on water. Her eyes blazed with power that came not from stolen strength or dark magic, but from the moon goddess herself. A white wolf. The rarest of signs, marking one chosen by the divine forces that governed their kind. Impossible, Damien breathed, his stolen power wavering in the face of Luna's divine radiance. But Kieran understood. Luna's bloodline hadn't just carried the gift of sight, it had carried the moon goddess's favor, passed down through generations until it found its perfect vessel. The trauma of her family's death hadn't destroyed her wolf, it had forced it into hibernation until she was strong enough to bear the weight of such blessing. My turn, Kieran said, and shifted into his own wolf form. His black coat seemed to absorb light, creating a perfect counterpoint to Luna's radiance. Where she was divine grace, he was earthly power. Where she was prophetic sight, he was unwavering strength. Together, they were balanced, light and shadow, vision and action, mercy and justice. Their combined power washed over the chamber like a tsunami. Seraphina's soul-binding ritual shattered like glass, the dark magic unable to stand against the pure force of their bond. Damien's stolen strength crumbled as Luna's divine light burned away centuries of accumulated corruption. No! Seraphina screamed, her perfect composure finally cracking completely. This isn't how it ends. I won't let you. Her words were cut off as Marcus Webb, still in wolf form, tackled her to the ground. The beta's massive jaws closed around her throat, and Seraphina's struggles ended with a wet snap. Damien, seeing his ally dead and his power broken, made one last desperate attack. He lunged at Luna with claws extended, seeking to take her life even if he couldn't claim her power. He never reached her. Kieran intercepted the attack with supernatural speed, his jaws closing around Damien's throat. The rogue alpha's eyes went wide with shock, then empty as Kieran's enhanced strength crushed his windpipe. Silence fell over the chamber like a curtain. The Iron Fang wolves who had survived the battle stood motionless, their leader dead and their purpose shattered. Blood Moon Pack warriors maintained defensive positions, but the fight had gone out of their enemies. Luna shifted back to human form, her divine radiance fading to a gentle glow. She was exhausted, drained by the night's events, but alive. More than alive, she was whole for the first time in 5 years. Kieran shifted as well, moving to her side and gathering her into his arms. Are you hurt? No, Luna said softly, marveling at the simple truth of it. I'm not hurt anymore. Through their bond, she could feel his love, his relief, his overwhelming gratitude that they had both survived. But there was something else, a question he was afraid to ask. What happens now? He said finally. Luna looked around the chamber, at the dead enemies, the surviving Iron Fang wolves who would need new leadership, the Blood Moon Pack warriors who were looking to their Alpha King for direction. The prophecy that had driven so much death and destruction was fulfilled, but not in the way anyone had expected. She was the destroyer, but what she had destroyed was corruption and hatred and the twisted ambitions of those who sought power over others. What remained was the possibility of something better. Now, Luna said, standing on her own strength for the first time in years, we go home. Kieran's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. Home. Blood Moon Pack. Luna felt her wolf stir contentedly at the thought. My pack now, if they'll have me. They'll have you, Kieran said with absolute certainty. We all will. As they walked out of the Iron Fang stronghold together, Luna felt the future spreading before them like an uncharted map. There would be challenges, rebuilding trust, healing old wounds, learning to use her divine gifts responsibly. But for the first time since her family's death, she faced the unknown without fear. She was Luna Silver, daughter of Alpha Marcus Silver, heir to the blood of kings and the favor of the moon goddess. She was the white wolf, chosen and blessed. But most importantly, she was Kieran Blackthorne's mate, and she was going home. Chapter 8. 3 months later, Luna stood in the Great Hall of the Blood Moon Pack House, watching the Werewolf Council deliver their verdict. The hall was packed with representatives from every major pack in North America, all come to witness justice for the crimes that had shaken their world. Seraphina Ravencrest, the council's lead speaker, announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. You have been found guilty of conspiracy, murder, and the forbidden practice of soul magic. The council sentences you to exile from all pack territories, your wolf to be bound until your natural death. Seraphina stood in silver chains between two council guards, her platinum hair dull and her once perfect features marred by defeat. The binding ritual had already begun. Luna could see the magical threads wrapping around Seraphina's wolf, cutting her off from the source of her supernatural strength. It was a fate worse than death for a werewolf. To live as essentially human, cut off from the wolf that was half of their soul, was a torment few could endure for long. The Iron Fang Pack, the speaker continued, will be dissolved. Its surviving members may petition other packs for sanctuary, provided they submit to thorough vetting and probationary periods. Luna felt a hand slip into hers. Kieran stood beside her in formal ceremonial robes, every inch the Alpha King. But his touch was gentle, grounding her as the council completed their business. Furthermore, the speaker said, the council recognizes the divine intervention that ended this threat. Luna Silver, daughter of the Silver Crest line, bearer of the moon goddess's favor, is hereby acknowledged as a pack leader in her own right, with all the privileges and protections therein. The acknowledgement was more than ceremonial. It meant Luna could never be forced into an unwanted mating or controlled by any alpha save by her own choice. It was the council's way of ensuring no one could manipulate her power the way Damien had tried to do. The council session is concluded, the speaker announced. May the moon goddess guide us all. As the hall erupted into conversation and the formal atmosphere dissolved, Luna felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. It was over. Truly over. How do you feel? Kieran asked quietly. Free, Luna said, and meant it. For the first time in 5 years, I feel free. They made their way through the crowd, accepting congratulations, and fielding questions from pack leaders who were still adjusting to the idea of a white wolf among them. Luna's divine nature made them nervous, but her obvious devotion to Kieran and the pack helped ease their concerns. Luna. Marcus Webb appeared at her elbow, his beta's instinct still protective despite the fact that she could probably level a small city if she chose. There's someone here to see you. Luna followed his gaze and felt her breath catch. An elderly woman stood near the main entrance, her silver hair braided with beads and her dark eyes bright with intelligence. She wore the traditional robes of a pack shaman, but there was something about her presence that spoke of even deeper mysteries. Grandmother Elena, Luna whispered. Elena Moonwhisper had been the Silver Crest Pack's spiritual advisor for over 60 years. Luna had thought her dead with the rest of her pack, but here she stood, looking exactly as Luna remembered from her childhood. Hello, little moon child, Elena said softly, opening her arms. Luna flew to her, not caring that she was supposed to be a dignified pack leader now. Elena's embrace smelled like sage and starlight, like home and safety and everything Luna had lost. I thought you were dead, Luna sobbed against the older woman's shoulder. I was traveling when the attack came, Elena explained, stroking Luna's hair. By the time I returned, there was nothing left but ashes and ghosts. I've been searching for you ever since. I'm sorry. I should have tried to find you, but I was so broken. Hush. Elena held her at arm's length, studying her face with eyes that saw far more than most. You survived. You grew strong. You found your mate and your purpose. That's all any of us can ask for. Kieran approached slowly, clearly recognizing the importance of the moment. Ma'am, he said respectfully. I'm Kieran Blackthorne. Elena studied him with the same intensity she'd turned on Luna. "So you're the one who captured our moon child's heart. I wondered what manner of wolf could be worthy of a silver daughter." "I'm not sure any wolf is worthy of Luna," Kieran said honestly. "But I love her more than my own life." "Good answer." Elena smiled for the first time since her arrival. "Luna, child, we need to talk. There are things about your heritage you still don't understand. Things your parents never had the chance to teach you." Over the next hour, Elena explained the true scope of Luna's abilities. The white wolf form was just the beginning. As Luna matured into her power, she would be able to do things that hadn't been seen in the werewolf world for centuries. "Your bloodline carries the direct blessing of the moon goddess," Elena said as they sat in Kieran's private study. "Not just the sight, but the ability to channel divine power itself. You could heal mortal wounds, see across vast distances, even grant temporary invulnerability to those you choose to protect." "That sounds dangerous," Luna said quietly. "All great power is dangerous. But you've already proven you won't abuse it." Elena gestured toward where Kieran sat listening intently. "The question is what you want to do with it." Luna looked at her mate, feeling the steady presence of their bond. Over the past months, that connection had continued to evolve. She could share her visions with him, while he could lend her his strength when the prophetic dreams became too intense to bear alone. "I want to help," Luna said finally. "I want to use the visions to guide the pack, to prevent conflicts before they start. I want to make sure what happened to my family never happens to anyone else." "And you, Alpha King?" Elena turned to Kieran. "Are you prepared to share power with a mate whose abilities might eventually eclipse your own?" "Luna doesn't eclipse me," Kieran said without hesitation. "She completes me. Whatever power she has, we'll use it together for the good of all our people." Elena nodded approvingly. "Then perhaps it's time for the formal claiming ceremony. The blood moon rises again in 3 days. It would be appropriate to complete your bond under the same moon that awakened Luna's true nature." The claiming ceremony was unlike anything the Blood Moon Pack had ever witnessed. Instead of the usual private ritual, Luna and Kieran chose to make their vows before the entire pack, declaring their bond for all to see. Luna wore a gown of white silk that seemed to glow in the moonlight, while Kieran was resplendent in midnight blue embroidered with silver wolves. They stood in the ceremonial circle where Luna had first learned the truth about her past, but now the space held only love and hope. "Before the moon goddess and our pack family," Kieran said, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing, "I claim Luna Silver as my true mate, my equal partner, and my queen." "Before the moon goddess and our pack family," Luna replied, "I claim Kieran Blackthorne as my true mate, my strength, and my king." The ritual words were ancient, passed down through generations of werewolves. But when Luna and Kieran spoke them, power answered. Light surrounded them, silver from Luna's divine nature, midnight blue from Kieran's alpha strength. The two colors swirled together, creating something new and beautiful. Their bond, already strong, crystallized into something unbreakable. Luna felt Kieran's soul intertwine with hers on a level deeper than mere emotion or physical attraction. They were two halves of a whole, perfectly balanced and eternally connected. "By the power of the moon goddess," Elena intoned from her position as ceremony leader, "I pronounce you mated for life and beyond. May your bond be a source of strength for all our people." The pack erupted in howls of celebration, their voices rising to the blood moon overhead. But Luna only had eyes for Kieran, for the man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. "I love you," she whispered as he pulled her into his arms. "Forever," he promised, and kissed her under the crimson moon. 6 months later, Luna stood in the same clearing, but everything had changed. The ceremonial space had been transformed into a garden of moonflowers and silver roses, a place of beauty and peace. She placed a hand on her rounded belly, feeling the twins stir restlessly within. The pregnancy had been a surprise at first. Werewolf conception was usually more deliberate, requiring specific timing and intention. But Elena had explained that Luna's divine nature made her exceptionally fertile, especially during times of emotional intensity. "They're going to be powerful," Luna murmured, addressing the children she carried. But you'll be raised with love, not hatred. You'll use your gifts to protect, not destroy. The visions had been clear about that. These children, a boy and a girl, both carrying aspects of their parents' gifts, would be the beginning of a new generation of werewolves. Stronger, more connected to their divine heritage, but tempered by wisdom and compassion. Talking to them again? Kieran's voice was warm with amusement as he approached from behind. They listen, Luna said, leaning back against his chest. I can feel them responding to my voice. Kieran's hands covered hers on her belly, and through their bond, she felt his wonder at the lives they'd created together. The Alpha King who had once thought himself destined for a loveless political marriage was going to be a father to children conceived in true love. Any new visions? He asked. Luna nodded, her expression growing serious. I saw something last night. Something we need to prepare for. The vision had been fragmented but urgent, glimpses of creatures that weren't quite werewolf, of magic that felt wrong, of a threat that came from beyond the borders of the known werewolf territories. Vampires? Kieran guessed. Maybe. Or something worse. Luna turned in his arms, her sea-green eyes reflecting the moonlight. There are powers stirring in the east, ancient things that have been sleeping for centuries. Our victory over Damien may have awakened them. Then we'll face them, Kieran said simply. Together. Together, Luna agreed. As if summoned by her words, Marcus appeared at the edge of the clearing. Sir, we're receiving reports from the Eastern Territories. Strange disappearances, entire families vanishing overnight. The local packs are requesting assistance. Kieran and Luna exchanged glances. It was beginning. Gather the council, Kieran ordered. We need to. He stopped mid-sentence as Luna suddenly gasped, her hand flying to her temple. Vision sight blazed in her eyes, showing her fragments of what was to come. Creatures with too pale skin and eyes like black holes. Ancient vampires emerging from underground cities where they'd hidden since the last supernatural war. Magic that could corrupt werewolf bonds and turn pack against pack. But also hope. Young werewolves with unprecedented gifts, like her children would be. Alliances forged between former enemies. And at the center of it all, a white wolf and her dark-furred mate, leading their people toward a destiny none of them could yet imagine. What did you see? Kieran asked gently when the vision faded. War, Luna said quietly. But also the seeds of peace. The children I'm carrying, they won't be the only ones. A new generation is coming, Kieran. Stronger, more gifted, more connected to the divine than any werewolves in recorded history. And this war? We'll test whether we're worthy of what we're becoming. Luna looked toward the eastern horizon, where darkness was gathering like storm clouds. But I'm not afraid anymore. Whatever comes, we'll face it as we've faced everything else. Together, Kieran finished. Together, Luna confirmed. As they walked back toward the pack house, Luna felt the future spreading before them like an uncharted ocean. There would be challenges that would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Ancient enemies would rise, new threats would emerge, and the children she carried would one day face dangers that made Damien's score look like a minor annoyance. But they would not face those challenges alone. The Blood Moon Pack was stronger than ever, united under leaders who truly loved each other and their people. Other packs were beginning to adopt their model of shared power and mutual respect. And somewhere in the distance, Luna could sense other young werewolves awakening to gifts that would reshape their world. The age of the White Wolf had begun. And Luna Silver Blackthorne, Queen of the Blood Moon Pack, Prophet of the Moon Goddess, and Mother to the Future, walked toward that uncertain dawn with her mate at her side and hope blazing in her heart. The story was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for tonight, she was home, she was loved, and she was exactly where she belonged. Forever bound to the wolf who had saved her soul, and ready to save the world. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.